Vigilante Waves in here with a very simple question. What did I think about ShadowGate, Millie Weaver, and the whole story? So, I just saw a documentary yesterday and the live stream she had about it last night as far as her arrest in the documentary. So, my most successful video has been on Millie Weaver's arrest. I'm not someone who's trying to like leech off of that, but I figured since I made that video, I should make a follow up, especially because I had an interest in seeing the documentary anyway. So I should give like a review and sort of a follow up of what I think. One of the things that was commented on in that video, so I thank you anyone who's commented and subscribed on that video and is potentially watching this one, but was that I was nonpartisan, and I want to maintain that in my coverage of the whole situation and of the documentary itself. So I want to first, off the bat in this review, recommend the documentary. I am going to be critical of it, but I think everyone should still watch it. I think there's a lot of valuable information in the documentary, and you should watch it. Having said that, I do have criticisms with both the documentary, and if you're still on the fence of whether or not everything is up and up, whether or not that was a publicity stunt, I am still of the opinion that it was not and that it was genuine. I think it's still people trying to suppress voices. I also don't think it's a coincidence that Jones, I'm not sure if I can say his name, but has let her go. Granted, in all interest of fairness, because I still want to provide that fairness, you can still use the idea that both Jones and her mother are people close to her. So if you still are skeptical, you still have room to be. I am not as skeptical. Like I said, I actually do believe that she was suppressed because of this documentary. That's my personal opinion. I believe that there may or may not be a chance as the sun glares. Don't you love these low production values on these YouTube videos? I do think there's a chance that she may be getting Laura Loomered, if you will, and I hope that's not happening to Millie. But if you are skeptical, you still have room to be. I still understand that. I think in general, you should take anything you see from anyone with a grain of salt. Myself included, I'm just a random nobody, you know what I mean, in a weird mask. So you should not just wholeheartedly believe anything. And in fact, that's one of my criticisms of this movie. If you are of the opinion, I call this the Walmart theory. If you're of this opinion, what I mean by Walmart, it's a comic book that makes fun of this Trump saving the world. So if you really believe and you really buy into the idea that there is a swamp, but that a president is not a part of it, and that Trump is this rebel saving the world for us, then you will love every bit of this, and this will feed into that ideology. If you're someone who's never seen any sort of thing like this before and you think this is all crazy, I can see you throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this one, which you should, because regardless of how you feel in regard to that, the information is still solid. I think there's a lot of connections made about what's going on with our data, and we know about the Five Eyes network. The idea that a contractor can access that material is actually kind of, I'm not going to say commonplace, but it's something that people can get their head around. It's something that I've sort of known just anecdotally. I used to have a friend in Australia, and certain conversations we have, because we were kind of in the same path way back when, all of a sudden we could tell that they were being recorded, and we used to make fun of it. So it's like, this is stuff that's happened. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility. It shouldn't be out of the realm. This is stuff you should really do your own research in. And with all these documentaries that you may come across, do your own research. Always independently research, but also listen, because a lot of information was being presented. But as far as the partisanship, like I said, I am not of the theory that Trump is this universal rebel against the machine. I do believe he's ruffled some feathers, and I do believe that the T virus has gotten loose in Umbrella Corp, if you will, as far as this wokeness has actually infected the minds of some of the powers that be, just based upon some of the decisions we've seen go on. So I mean, it's not a crazy theory totally. I want to play angel's advocate to myself, but this movie relies on that theory. It's a lot about the Roger Stone situation, and to be fair, I'm not an expert on that situation. I think the most valuable stuff for me was kind of a dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's as far as what's going on with our data. I mean, I think a lot of us could guess that a lot of our data was getting out to third parties and getting out to contractors. The fact that those contractors are not always using servers on U.S. soil, I mean, that's, again, informational. It's good to know, but it's not a surprise. And it really depends on where you're coming from. If this is your first documentary of this kind, you might be surprised. That might be mind-blowing to you. If you've seen, your fair share of Truth Stream Media documentaries, your fair share of Jerry Meyer documentaries, your fair share of documentaries, a lot of which that not even available on the internet or on YouTube anymore. If you've been doing this sort of research for years and years, a lot of these details that come out, even if they're new to you, aren't really shocking. They're more of, okay, this is the exact way this mechanism works, but I've known basically that this mechanism works. I've known that there were actual what they call assets all throughout the media and entertainment industry. This isn't new. You know what I mean? So showing a bit more information and background on this mechanism is fascinating, but it's not a revelation. But if this is your first documentary, second documentary of this type, this may be shocking to you. So how you feel about this information is really going to be determined about how experienced you are with this information. So for someone like me, a lot of this stuff was just like, oh man, this is how this works. And they use IIAs as their phrase for psyops. And okay, this is just some of the official workings behind that, and it was very informational because of that, and that's what I liked about the documentary. The partisanship, I'm not saying it's totally unfounded either. Just wasn't interesting to me because I am not a big, I'm Trump agnostic. I'm Orange Man agnostic. He's done a lot of things I'm happy with. He does seem to be ruffling feathers, but I don't buy this whole one man rebel. You don't get to that seat without having some amount of control. And I'll just do a thought experiment with anyone who's disputing this. So if you were really for the people, by the people president, you would probably do away with a certain bank that's been around since the 1910s. I don't know if I can say their name, but you know which one. And you would tell Jerome Powell, and you would say, hey, you guys are done, and you would back the money by gold. In Utah, they have gold backs. You would do something like that where the money is actually a gold or maybe silver back, and you bake it into the money itself so your money is less insolvent. This is what you would do for a financial system. And Trump is a businessman. He's intelligent enough to know this. He hasn't done it. There must be some sort of powers that prevent him from doing it. So that is what I mean. He must exist within some framework. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean that within that framework, dirty tricks aren't being played. But that theory is just that Walmart theory with him as this superhero, all-powerful superhero. I just don't buy. Not in this totality. That doesn't mean there's nothing to it, but I'm just not one for that. And this movie very much does rely on that theory and rely on that sort of thinking. Also, there is a lot of leading in the questioning. There's leading to the narrative. I thought a lot of information was good on its own. It didn't need a lot of spin. You could have just presented a lot of information by itself, and that's not a knock. It's just my own personal thought. Again, if this is your first documentary, I think it still is going to be interesting, but the spin I wasn't a fan of. And I also wanted to say, if you are going to be somewhat suspicious of any of the information Tori says, or Tori, maybe the point of suspiciousness, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater with her either. I think a lot of the information she gave was very much valid, but there is spin, so just take that with a grain of salt. That doesn't mean all the information is necessarily incorrect. It just means, hey, there's some spin. You may want to just account for it in whatever way you want to account for it. If you are, this Walmart Trump supporter to the end, and you definitely believe he's this hero that you deserve and need right now, I think you'll love this documentary. If you're someone who hates him and thinks this is all crazy, you probably just think it's a bunch of lunacy. If you're someone in the middle, you'll find the information very valuable. Depending on how new you are to this information, you may find it shocking. If you're already past that point, you may say, okay, this is really cool to know. I think all of these documentaries are must watches. I still haven't seen Plandemic, and I need to, but I saw Out of Shadows, and I would say Out of Shadows to me was actually a better documentary if you want to compare. The reason I say that is because Out of Shadows presented information that I knew almost every part of, but the way it was done, I don't know if it was the editing or the presentation, I just think it told its story so much more effectively. So even someone who knew everything about what they were talking about still got something out of it, just from the storytelling and just presenting a clear path on how we're being manipulated and some of the things behind the people at Hollywood. I think with this cuties controversy, we're seeing how disturbed and depraved these people are. So that is pretty much it for the movie. Now, I did want to speak a little bit more on Millie Weaver's situation in general. I guess whether or not it's a hoax, I don't think it's a hoax. I think that she is genuinely being suppressed. I think it's weird that InfoWars has let her go after promoting this documentary. I just think it's weird that it's just something weird is up. And again, if you want to have that bit of skepticism, I think everyone should be skeptical of everything at all times. So I do maintain some skepticism, but I'm 95% sure that she's just being suppressed. And there's a 9-0 chance she's being Laura Loomer. Don't get me wrong, it could be a marketing ploy, but it just doesn't seem right as a marketing ploy. It just seems like you would do more. But to be fair, to play angel's advocate to that, I will say this about a lot of the information that happened since the release of the documentary and her being released from prison. She did a stream. Did I say prism or prison? Maybe I was a Freudian slip, because prism is what the Five Eyes thing is called, isn't it? But I digress. After her being released from prison, or not prison, jail, she did a live stream with Tory Says, and to be fair, more evidence to them potentially being Loomered. I know that last time I checked, Tory Says his Twitter was either deactivated or suspended or something like that. So that's more information towards that. But anyways, they did a live stream. Millie said that she couldn't talk about her case or she would be arrested, even though she sort of still talked about it a little bit. So I'm not sure what you want to make of that. I think in general, whether or not this is legitimate, only time will tell. I am of the belief that it is, but I understand why you may not. And there is still little pieces of evidence that may point you in that direction. During her live stream, she didn't answer any questions or any comments. She didn't pay attention. They just told her story, and that was it. But I didn't actually check the chat itself, so I'm not sure if that was like a premiere or something like that, and she was in the chat, so I was just watching the live stream in and of itself. A lot of it just kind of went over the information before, and that was a little bit even more political and more in the whole Roger Stone situation, which wasn't really my point. I was just caring about her talking about the contractors and the information and the way data is being manipulated and the way they can zero in on a person based upon their data and that sort of stuff. I do understand that Roger Stone situation was a example of them doing such, but I didn't care too much about that story. I know of the story. I get why everyone's excited, but I'm not a partisan, and Roger Stone's not somebody I'm going to cheer for. I'm sorry. So I'm just not that guy. So I apologize to anyone who, I'm sure I'm on Parler. That's the only social network I'm on. I get that that's a conservative network. So I get that there's going to be a lot of people who are fans of his. I'm apathetic to negative on him. So that information, it's just not stuff that interests me. So there's a lot of that in the stream as well. And whether or not you believe Tori, I tried to check her because I had never heard of her beforehand. She seems to be someone who's in this community. Again, I don't know enough information either way about her. So you need to do a lot of independent research to figure out what you believe. I think there seems to be some suppression about this documentary, but only time will tell. A few months pass, nothing really comes of it, and she's still just doing documentaries. Then maybe you can ask a few questions about whether or not this was legitimate. But I think it was. It seems like there's been a little bit of suppression, well, more than a little bit. They may be being deplatformed. I'm not sure. We'll see. Only time will tell what happens. I think it's weird that Jones has distanced himself from this documentary, especially after promoting it. And I didn't even watch. I haven't watched his stuff ever, really. I've come across it when he was still platformed, but I was never really too big into him. So if you're somebody who's big into him and you're big into that whole energy, not that it hasn't provided some valuable information, it hasn't mainstreamified the idea of being a truther and the idea of wanting to know more information, but a lot of his stuff I've just not been a fan of, and so I'm not big into that energy. But if you are, then either way, you should wonder why he's distanced himself from her. I think that's very weird, and that could mean this is also crazy psyop publicity stunt, or it could mean that a lot of powerful people were upset about this, and that's for you to decide. So I will end the video there. I hope you like it. This is my follow-up. I don't see myself making a ton of material on this again, so I apologize. That's the only reason you showed up. But feel free to watch other things on this channel. I'm actually doing nerd stuff, news stuff. I gotta talk about other things because the world is so depressing and so dark. We need palate cleansers. That's why I have a lot of content that I just put out about DC fandom and about Batman and Wonder Woman and cool stuff like that, because we can't just live in this world where everything's dark and depressing. We have to inform ourselves, we have to educate ourselves, but we also have to live our lives. So I thank you for watching this video. God bless. If you like this video, please like this video. If you're willing to subscribe and share, I would really appreciate that. If you hate this video or you want to discuss anything in the comments, please let me know in the comments. Even if you're willing to do none of these things, thank you for your time and thank you for watching this video. God bless.